Hey, Matt from Loot Signal, and today I want to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 and whether or not it has lived up to the hype. Now, I bought my Switch 2 on day one, on launch day, and there was a lot of hype leading up to this release, a lot of hype when this Switch 2 was announced, and a lot of hype after it was released to the public. So I want to talk about, has the Switch 2 lived up to the hype? And let me know in the comments below whether you think the Switch 2 has lived up to the hype. Now, I want to start with the good here and talk about where I think the Switch 2 has lived up to the hype. And I think the area where it's met my expectations and even exceeded it was with the console or the hardware itself. So this is my Switch 2, and I gotta say, I love everything about the hardware. It feels like a premium product. It's a step up from the Switch 1 in every way. It feels great in the hands. The games look great on it. And it really delivered on the hardware front. I mean, if you're playing your games on the go in portable mode, they look amazing, feels great to play. And as I said, it just feels like an overall much more premium product than the Switch 1. So I gotta say, in terms of the hardware itself, the Switch 2 has met the hype. Now, unfortunately, that's one of the only areas that I think the Switch 2 actually delivered and did meet the hype. So now I want to talk about where I think the Switch 2 has fallen short, and that is with the software or the games. And there's two games I've got for the Switch 2. The first was Mario Kart World, that was a pack-in when I bought the console, and the second is Donkey Kong Bonanza. So I've got a couple gripes with these games, and I want to talk about it and discuss why I think these games have fallen short a bit and not met the hype. So let's start with Mario Kart World. When I first put this game in and played it, I absolutely loved it. I thought the world was awesome, it looked amazing, the gameplay was fun. I mean, it's exactly what you expect from a Mario Kart game. But after a couple weeks, I found myself being disengaged and, to be quite honest, getting bored of the game. And that's a bit surprising because, again, it was only after a couple weeks. So I've been thinking about why that was and where I think the game fell short and didn't deliver on the hype. And I think there's kind of two areas. The first was the open world, the world itself. While it was fun at the beginning to explore and look around, I just think there's not enough to keep the player engaged. And I think Nintendo really needs to go back, add some secrets into the open world, add some more unlockable items, some more content there, because only after a couple weeks, it gets quite boring. There's just not enough to do. And for a game that has world in the title, the world needs to be full, it needs to be fun, it needs to keep you wanting to go back. And I think the game's lacking a bit right now. So in that regard, I don't think the game lived up to the hype. And another area I want to talk about, and this is kind of a general comment, but it applies to Mario Kart World and also Donkey Kong Bonanza that I'm going to talk about as well. And this is that I think the game itself is a little too easy. And let me give you an example. When you first put the game in and play, you're essentially on rails. You can't even drive off the track if you want to. And this threw me off at first. It took me some time to realize that this is actually just a setting. So you can go into the settings and turn this off, but basically they keep you on the tracks. And I don't know why they're doing that. I don't know why they're trying to make the game easier than it needs to be. Um, I'm more old school. I came from the Super Nintendo Mario Kart, the Nintendo 64 Mario Kart, and back then there was no hand-holding. So I don't get why on these newer generations they're trying to make games easier. I think Nintendo needs to step back and realize here a bit that kids are better gamers than they think. And they need to just make the game, let the game be a little hard, let them figure it out, and let them enjoy it. And they also got to realize there's a lot of people like me that have been playing these games for 25, 30 years, and we need a little bit of a challenge. So in that area, I think the game hasn't met the hype, and Nintendo needs to go back, think about this a little bit, and maybe make the games a little bit harder. Now, the next game I want to talk about that I feel didn't quite meet the hype or match my expectations was Donkey Kong Bonanza. And I want to say that I'm not saying this game's not a good game, and I'm also not saying that Mario Kart World's not a good game. I actually think they are good games. I just think they fell short a little bit, and making some improvements would take these games from good to great. So let's talk about it. When I first put this game in, I actually really did like it. I think graphically it's amazing. I think the world's awesome. I think the mechanics are good. But again, it fell short in a couple areas for me that made me just really stop having fun about halfway through the game. And the first one is similar to Mario Kart World in that I feel the game's just too easy. I mean, there's so many times where I get to a boss and I've beaten the boss before I even see an animation. You just jump on them, smash them, 3 hits, they're done. And I'm not saying I'm the best gamer or anything like that. It's just actual criticism, constructive feedback here. The bosses are too easy. And I think this has been a problem with Nintendo for a while. And I don't know why they're so scared to add more challenge into these boss fights. Um, Now, I understand maybe they're designing these games for kids, for a younger audience. But again, I think they have to start realizing that kids are better at these games now than we think. And a little bit more boss challenge would go a long way. Now, it's not just the bosses that I think are too easy. I think the overall game itself is too easy in a lot of ways. For example, it's too easy to get bananas, and there's too many of them. So I'm a big believer in quality over quantity. And if you take a look at some other great 3D platformers over the years, let's take a look at Mario 64, for example. You have a lot less stars, but each star is put into the game with careful consideration. They're hard to get, and anytime you get one, you feel a sense of achievement. And I don't get that feeling in Donkey Kong Bonanza because there's too many bananas, they're too easy to get, and it just feels like every 5 minutes you're finding one. On top of that, you don't even necessarily need to get the bananas to progress through the game. So again, going back to Mario 64, you actually had to collect a certain number of stars before you could progress, before you could open the doors. In this game, you really just need to do, the main missions or the main quest to progress. And the bananas are really a side item. So you only need them for the skill points, but you really don't even need to collect them. You can just run through this world and there's really no sense of achievement getting them. So that's an area where I think this game is lacking. Again, I think it's a bit too easy and there's a bit too many bananas. And the biggest problem with that is you don't get that sense of achievement, right? Again, going back to Mario 64, even other games like Elden Ring, when you beat a boss, you get that adrenaline rush, you get that sense of achievement. But in Donkey Kong Bonanza, it's just so simple that it's cool to see, it's cool to play the bosses, but you don't come out feeling like you actually accomplished anything because they're just too easy. So that's my feedback on these games where I think they fell short. I think they need to be a little bit harder. I think Nintendo needs to start realizing that the people playing their games are better than they think, even the kids. I can tell you, I got nephews and nieces, and they're good at these games. They don't need that much hand holding. It's good for them to get a little bit of a challenge. So there's no need to start making games easier than they used to be in past generations. So that's my thoughts on the Switch 2, whether I think it's lived up to the hype so far. And again, I don't want to come off like a hater. I don't like these games. I actually think they are good games. I just don't think they're 10 out of 10s. But that's my opinion. I would probably put them more at 9 out of 10 games for the reasons I mentioned. But I do want to know your thoughts. What do you think about the Switch 2? Has it lived up to the hype? Have the games lived up to the hype? And what do you want to see Nintendo do? I do think there's a lot of time for Nintendo to turn this around, release more games, release some harder games, maybe some games that I will enjoy more. Um, but we'll see what happens. So let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and have a nice day.